Hello friends, welcome back. I'm Nick and this is MSFS Flight Plans, a place you come when you need to reignite your passion for simming, learning, and exploring as we check out the coolest, best looking, most interesting spots we can possibly find all across the planet. Today we got another hometown flyover. For me anyway, we'll be cruising over the eastern panhandle of Florida and then flying up to the capital city of Tallahassee, a place I called home for about 4.5 years while attending college at Florida State University. And since we're kind of on a Thunderbolt kick lately, I figured we should go ahead and take a crack at the namesake of the A-10, which is what we flew on that last trip over the islands of Greece. This is the P47-D Thunderbolt, which is an Aeroplane Heaven creation. And you guys know I'm not a huge warbird fan. They're just kind of hard to fly for these types of trips, but this thing is unbelievable. It looks incredible. It flies incredible. It is so much fun. It feels so good in the stick, and it is powerful and heavy and just amazing. I absolutely love this. I've been flying all over the place with this. You know, this wasn't even on our lineup for our itinerary of flights, but I took another flight over here just for the fun of it to have an excuse to fly this thing, and here we are, back in it again. Okay, so let's go ahead and start it up. I'll tell you more about why I absolutely love this, and I'll tell you a little bit about the plane, because I'm going to really try to sell this thing to you guys, and I have no affiliation whatsoever with Airplane Heaven. Paid my own money for this thing, but it is really, really cool. First of all, I've got the canopy open so you can hear this engine start, and when you get in it, you have to make sure that you turn the fuel on in the sim, because it starts with zero fuel all the time. And we will run out of fuel in our main tank, so we're going to have to switch to the auxiliary tank before we get up there, even though it isn't a really far flight. I think the range on this is only like 700 miles, but you can add some other tanks if you want to, and I'll show you how to do that in case you're thinking about getting this, and I certainly hope you do. So you twist these little knobs, you can add the different tanks down here, and you can change the bomb sights. It came with 2 different types of bomb sights when they're building these planes, so that's the other one, and if you want a GPS, you can add it there, but we're going to keep the bomb sights on there. We'll take the smaller one just so it's not really in the way, and it's really, really cool and easy to fly, but we're going to hand fly this thing the whole way. But it does have GPS. Actually, I'm going to try to get the GPS to work. I was trying to hand fly it before. I think once you reach like 2,000 feet or so, you can turn on the GPS. It would not activate before. So once we get up there and level, I'll try turning it on, because one of the flights it did work and I could adjust our altitude and all that stuff. So we'll just see if it works. You do have your oxygen blinker down here. We're only going to 2,500 feet on this flight, so we don't need oxygen. But if you want to turn that to a radio, you can click that. And I don't think it has a transponder anywhere. I couldn't find one. But no big deal. They'll hear us coming. Okay, so let's get this baby fired up. First, we turn on the battery. Then we turn on the alternator, which is way down here, that tiny little button right down there. And then we need to put our fuel selector on main, which I think I already did. Yep, and we're going to have to switch to auxiliary. I need to remember to do that. This will light up, but when the sun's coming in, it's high noon right now, so it's going to be hard to see that. I just need to watch this gauge here. About halfway through the flight, I'm going to need to switch that over to the other tank. Okay, boost pump on. And you're supposed to turn this off once you get in the air, but I found that if I did that and dropped the throttle too low, the engine would shut off. So I'm just going to leave it on because it didn't seem to cause any problems when I left it on. So we'll keep it on. Okay, so you need to set the mixture to auto rich, which is 1 notch back, and it doesn't have a lock or a click or anything. So I'm just going to pull it back a little bit from full rich. So that should be the auto rich setting right there. Take the props all the way to the hilt, crack the throttle a little bit. And this little water injection button really does work, and you can see it crank up the RPMs and everything when you turn it on. I don't know when or how to use that. It didn't really mention it in the manual, which is a great manual, by the way. And it also has a blower, which I'll tell you how that works. And you don't ever have to touch the blower. It'll fly just fine without it, but the real guys would fly with the blower on, so I'll tell you how that works, and we'll play with it a little bit. Okay, so we got the mixture set to auto rich. That's good to go. We'll prime it twice. And open our cowl flaps, because this is the live weather, and it was 100 degrees in Jacksonville today, and Tallahassee is directly west of here, so they probably had a lot of heat too. Once we get up and going, as you can see, we got a big old cowl up here, so we'll go ahead and shut that and just keep an eye on our temperatures, make sure everything's cool with that. All right, so what you're supposed to do is energize this thing. In real life, they said you'd have to do it for 15 seconds, but you have to at least do it for 10 seconds in the sim, or it won't start. Let's turn our mags on. That's going to be kind of important. And then we can go ahead and hit the starter, and it should be good to go, and wait till you hear this baby roar to life. And they said you also open the canopy on approach in real life so you can check to make sure the gears are down, but I don't know how you'd see the gears because you certainly can't see them from here. But we'll open it on approach too, just because it's awesome. And let's check our barrel while we're waiting. Okay, you ready? Hopefully this baby will fire up. There we go. Amazing. All right, so you're also supposed to open your intercooler and oil shutters, but it takes forever. You use these switches and they'll slowly slide over. I'm just going to leave them shut because that didn't seem to adversely affect our temperatures either, so just to save a little bit of time, we won't mess with that either. But in real life, you would be messing with those things as well. Okay, so I think everything's good to go. So the way this boost lever works to run the supercharger, I'm guessing, is they said in real life the pilots would kind of grab these two, the throttle and the boost, and slide them up so that this boost lever was always just right behind the throttle, never ahead of it. And as you advance it a little bit, you'll see this light will start flashing, and the manual says you want that to be flashing all the time. So once we get going and throw that forward a little bit more, we'll advance a little bit more, but I don't have this mapped over to anything, so I don't want to have to keep messing with it. And hopefully I can get the autopilot to work, because this baby is a handful on the ground and in the air. Okay, so I think we're good to go. We're going to have to do a little bit of taxiing, because we're going to have to get to where we have a bit of a headwind as we're coming around. So parking brake off. And as you can imagine, this sucker is very nose heavy, so you got to go real easy on the brakes when you're stopping. And I'm going to stop right up here by the fuel station, and we'll take a quick look at the Google map. For some reason, I just have like a mental block against remembering to do that, but I want to kind of show you guys where we're going so you can orient yourselves as I very gently apply the brakes to stop up here. Okay, let's put the parking brake on real quick. Alright, so here's the map. Here's where we're going. There's Tallahassee. Let's zoom out a little bit. Alright, so we're leaving from... Now, a couple places I want to show you, because I'm going to mention them on the trip, and you'll kind of want to know where those are if you're not familiar with this area. Pensacola, I'm going to mention, and then St. Augustine, which we saw on that Jacksonville trip. I'm going to mention both of these places as we get going, so that's where those are. We're leaving from Apalachicola. Here's the airport right here, and we're going to come down here. Let me zoom in some. So we're parked right here. We're going to have to come down here, get to the end of this runway, take off this direction so we can get an almost headwind. And then it's going to take me a little while to just kind of get ourselves situated. I need to try to get up to our cruising altitude of 2,500 feet. And then I'm going to try to turn on the autopilot. And then we're going to come around here like this, take a look at the town of Apalachicola, and then cruise over here and check out St. George Island, which is beautiful. And then we'll come over this way, check out this coastline. And you're going to see, I mean, you can just tell looking at this, not a lot of population out here at all. We'll cruise to the north of Carabelle around this way, and then come over to Alligator Point around Ball Point. Cruise up the Ocklackney Bay here, and by Panhandle. Actually, we're going to kind of come in like this. Panhandle will be to our left, and then we'll head up to Crawfordville. We're going to cut across like this because I want to show you Wakulla Springs, and then we'll be up to Tallahassee. We're going to come in from this direction because the way that I would drive up here when I was coming from my hometown of Citrus County, if you saw our deep south flight, that's where I was living at the time. You take this road, which goes all the way down to Tampa. It turns into State Road 19. But when you're coming up here, it dead ends right in front of the Capitol building, and the Capitol building's up on top of a hill, which is not much of a hill. It's one of the highest hills in Florida. I think the elevation's like 250 feet, but it's kind of cool. So we're going to take it as if we're driving up to the Capitol building, then swing out here to Tennessee Street, which is the main drag through the college town, part of Tallahassee, and this is Florida State here. We'll see FAMU down there. There it is right there. And the airport's right down here, but there's a pretty strong headwind when I was up here about an hour ago, so I need to circle back around, which will be fine because there's some more stuff to see up here. And then we'll come this way like that. And the sim said it was going to be over 50 minutes. I don't think that's anywhere close because this thing is really fast, so I don't know how it made that calculation. Probably closer to like half an hour in the air, I'm thinking. So we're starting our journey today from the Apalachicola Regional Airport, and we'll be hearing all kinds of funny place names as we go along. And if you'd like to learn a little bit more how to speak Floridian, check out our Are We There Yet trip. That was the one over Orlando. I think towards the end of that flight I gave a few brief lessons about how to speak Florida. But this airport was built in 1939, so once again, you know why they built it. Getting ready for World War II. And once the war kicked off, they expanded it a bit, and we're using it as an auxiliary field for Tyndall Air Force Base, which is about 30 miles to the west, also right along the coast. And then after the war in 1947, they turned it back over to the town of Apalachicola, which is almost comical. When you see this town, it is tiny. This airport is bigger than the town. Which, I don't know who all's flying in and out of here, but I guess St. George Island's kind of a big tourist destination, so maybe people are flying in here for that. I don't know, because there's nothing else around here. The next big towns, if you go towards the west, would probably be like Panama City Beach, which is pretty good sized. And then, of course, Pensacola and all that stuff down there. Alright, I'm just doing a little S-taxing to see where we're going. So, according to the manual, you're supposed to lock the tail wheel when you take off, as is the case with most tail draggers, but it's very, very hard for me to keep these under control with the tail wheel locked. It's hard enough without the tail wheel locked. And this thing has so much torque. I'm going to start over on the left side of the runway because it's going to torque itself over to the right once the tail comes up. So we'll see if for the first time in probably 15 takeoffs I can actually keep it on the runway, which I highly doubt. So do not rate my takeoff. And the landing is just as tough. But they said they built this thing pretty rigid, so you can bring the flaps out and the gear down, I think at 200 miles per hour, which is how our airspeed gauge is indicated, not in knots. And since we have that huge engine out in front of us, I'm going to take a pretty steep angle of attack on our approach, drop all 6 notches of flaps, and then come in. Our VREF speed is about 100 miles per hour, so it can get slowed down pretty good too. And once you plane, it really slows down. Alright, so once we get turned around here, I'm going to go ahead and set our cruise altitude 2,500 feet on my external hardware. I just hope it works, because it's really, really hard to narrate and fly this thing. And again, we're coming all the way over to the left here. No add-ons for this flight. This exact flight plan, however, will be included in our video description. As always, there's no add-ons available, except for Tallahassee International. There's a payware add-on that was like $8. But you guys know how I feel about airports. We're just going to be seeing it for a second. And the one in the sim looks nothing like the real airport, so if you really wanted some realism, you could get that if you didn't want to mind spending the $8 on it. Okay, so landing lights on. 1 notch of flaps. Shut that bad boy. And we got to get this rudder turned way to the right. So it does have a takeoff setting there, which you can see they actually took a marker and like wrote over it, which is kind of cool. But you got to bring it to about the halfway point between the takeoff setting and the bottom there. And we'll have to fool around with the aileron trim too, because it wants to keep rolling over to the left. At least it did last time, so we'll see how that goes. Alright, you guys ready? Well, let's rock and roll. It said go pretty easy with the throttle as you bring it up. So we're going to do that. Let's see if we can keep this baby under control. Not too bad until that tail comes up. And then it wants to pull off to the right. Although we are getting a little bit of wind that looks like it might push our nose to the right a little. We'll see. We'll see. Alright, keep bringing that throttle up. Rotate speed's about 100 miles per hour. And luckily we have a lot of runway. Alright, full throttle. Alright, not nosing over too much. There we go. Alright, come on up, baby. Just come on up. Well, I actually stayed on the runway. Incredible. Alright, gears up. And flaps up. Alright, so I'm just going to head out over the water here a little bit. Landing lights off. Get our trims adjusted. And I can tell we're going to have to mess with that aileron trim a little bit, because you can see it's wanting to roll to the left a little bit. And I'm not getting a lot of yaw, so maybe we can leave the rudder as it is. So far, so good. If the autopilot works, it should hopefully self-correct that. Alright, give it a neutral stick, see how we're doing. Not too bad. And this thing will cruise easily at over 300 miles an hour. Alright, so I'm going to adjust our aileron trim a little bit here. Just give it a couple clicks. And then bring that rudder trim back over to the left a little bit. Or a lot. Wow, it's actually incredibly stable this time around. Okay, cool. Well, we're moving. Alright, so let's start coming over this way. Get back on the mainland. And of course, hop outside the plane. Look at that. And listen to that. Incredible. Awesome. Alright, so let me go ahead and set our altitude for 2,500 feet. Hopefully it will lock onto that. At least get us on track for everything. We'll see. And the shorelines out here just look great. The little estuaries and stuff and the mud flats and all that just look really, really good out here. The town of Apalachicola sits at the mouth of a river by the same name, which originated from a combination of 2 indigenous words meaning people on the other side. Presumably meaning the other side of the river. And the first Europeans out here were the Brits, who set up a trading post called Cottonton. And the Apalachicola River was actually a part of an important trade network because it eventually hooked up with the Chattahoochee River. And I don't know if it actually connects to it or if they had to take a little trek through the woods or what. But that Chattahoochee goes all the way up past Stone Mountain north of Atlanta. And I think it's what goes into Lake Lanier as well. So if you saw that flight, it's a long river. Way down yonder on the Chattahoochee. Alright, so there's our airport. Let me just see if I can get on our track and then try the autopilot. Coming up on 2,000 feet. This thing just feels so incredibly good to fly. Really a cool plane. And believe it or not, up until they finally built a rail line through this region, this little town we're about to see was the 3rd busiest port on the Gulf of Mexico. Which is crazy. Alright, let's try the autopilot, see what happens. Nav on. And do an altitude hold. Bring it on up. Very good. All right, it's working. Unbelievable. So there's Apalachicola there. We'll get a nice look at that here in just a second. There's the Apalachicola River. Look how big this airport is. It's like 3 times the size of the town. Unbelievable. All right, dead ahead of us is St. George Island and their airport, which we'll see in just a minute. They got a single 3,300-foot runway down there, and I'm pretty sure that's used by the well-to-do residents in the surrounding communities. But back when that airport that we left from was a military base, and before anyone lived on St. George Island, they were using it as a bombing range for B-24s, which is cool. I wonder if they ever find any unexploded bombs out there. And you know what? I am really, really glad that we got that marina add-on pack. That thing was totally worth it. See that marina down there? We're going to see lots of little marinas, and every one of them's got boats in it, which really adds to the immersion when you don't see all that stuff submerged. And all of our bridges are going to look good, and luckily most of the bridges in real life look like default bridges, which is great. So that's pretty much spot on what you would see if you were out here. Apalachicola. I've driven through there a few times, never stopped for much of anything other than to grab a snack and go to the bathroom, probably. Look how good that looks, though. Just amazing. But they started throwing the first houses up on St. George Island in the 1970s after they built this great big bridge that we're going to see in just a minute that connected the place to the mainland. Before that, I guess they were just bombing away. And there's that airport right in front of us there. So we're going to kind of skirt along the southern coast of the island, because on the other side of it, the house is right along the beach. I saw a few spots where they were flat, but all the marinas and stuff are on this side. All right, let's go ahead and pull our RPMs back. It didn't really say what a good RPM setting was. I'm going to pull our manifold pressure back to 40 and try to get our RPMs down to 2,500. I think that'll be fine. Then we'll adjust our blower again. But as you can probably imagine, this is a pretty ritzy area out here these days. All right, so let's bring the blower up. Also need to remember to pull that back down when we come in for our approach. Look at that. Beautiful, beautiful Florida beaches. Incredible. And they've even got some beaches behind the barrier islands. So there's the bridge. They built that in 1961. And then some developers rolled in and started buying up parcels of land on the island here. And to our left, right down there where the bridge connects up, is the town of East Point, which shares most of its history with Apalachicola, which is the one that was on the other side of the river there. Look how gorgeous this looks. You know, I tried to take a sunrise flight initially and see that stuff on the window again, if you saw that last flight. Again, not a developer, not knocking anybody. Don't know a thing about how this is done, but I just can't imagine anyone being like, you know, I wish there was more pixelated white stuff on the windows. I don't get that. Look at all those boats down there. Incredible. But it was so bad. When the sun was at a lower angle, I couldn't even see out the window. So I made it about noon o'clock. So right now we got a 17-knot wind coming from 250. Oh, it's gusting between 6 and 17 knots. So a little choppy, but this thing is so heavy. Look at those boats down there. Beautiful. So this area right down here, right along the coast, that is the site of the Franklin County K-12 school, which is the only brick-and-mortar school in this county. And the whole county only has about 12,000 residents. So I guess they're living right along the coast here. And that whole area north of the coastline there, stretching back as far as we can see, is called, it's a big preserve. It's called Tate's Hell Wildlife Management Area, which is an incredible name. All right, so we're just a little over 300 miles per hour now, and we could take it up a little bit more probably. Again, I don't want to overrun the engine. Look how fast this thing's drinking fuel. If I didn't mention it before, I think the range on this, without adding the drop tanks, is about 700 miles, so it couldn't go real far. In this area on the eastern tip of St. George's Island, right down there before it kind of breaks in between, before that other island, is a big state park, and of some notoriety. In 2013, it got rated as the 3rd best beach in the country by Forbes magazine. So I don't really know what that means, but maybe it's a big deal. There's a school down there. Not a bad spot for a school, huh? I wonder how many kids they have there. They have 7 schools in all in the whole county, but the other 6 were, well, one was a charter school and the other were virtual schools. So that's the only place to go. And I didn't see... I'm sure they have some fields down there. I didn't notice any, though. But nothing but forests out here. Lots and lots of forests. All right, up next will be the town of Carabelle, situated along the very meandering Carabelle River. And this place got its start after the Civil War when they built a big lumber mill in 1875. And by the 1890s, they'd added several more, along with a few big turpentine factories, building up the population enough to staff a local luxury resort called the Lanark Springs Hotel, which apparently attracted a lot of tourists from Tallahassee. All right, let me go ahead and shut our cowl flaps, and then we'll just keep an eye on our temperature, just to give us a little bit more field of view. And they got one little airport down there that you can see. But this whole place was washed away during a hurricane at the turn of the 20th century, and the devastation was so complete that they decided to rebuild the town, or what was left of it. Instead of on the former location, right at the mouth of the river, they moved it inland by about 400 yards, which was far more reasonable where it sits today. So here's the town now. I guess before it was maybe here. There we go. That'll protect it if we have another hurricane. But I guess I haven't had another one since. But another just tiny little town down here. And look at this river just winding all over the place. Carabelle River. Beautiful. Look at that. I love this. Look at these little rivulets running up through here. Incredible. Marinas look amazing. So good. Alright, over there to our right is a place called Dog Island. And some speculate that that name comes from the sailing days when ships would come in to pick up their cargo and would drop off their low-ranking crew members before coming into port so that nobody would try to go AWOL. And the area between the island and the mainland here is called Ballast Bay, and people are a little bit more certain about the origin of that one. It's where ships would toss all their ballast rocks overboard so they can make it out of port once they loaded up with lumber and turpentine. And they said if you go diving out here today, you can still see all the little piles of rocks down there on the seabed, which would be pretty cool. That's it, Dog Island. More marinas. So this is Lanark Village, right down here on the left, and I'm going to assume that's where the old resort was, since it has the same name. Man, that marina pack, totally worth it. And it's global, too. Everywhere. Although I have seen some really remote marinas that didn't have boats in them, but for most of them that would normally be underwater, they got boats now. And we may get one hard freeze during this flight. I think it was around this peninsula that we're coming up on. But other than that, it was good. And Tallahassee is a photogrammetry city, and we'll still be up in the 40s with our frame rates. And I got everything except our windshield effects maxed out. This area has been hit by a lot of hurricanes. Some of them in the last 10 years or so just wiped it out. But not these little towns. They're still here. Some of them. Alright, we're going to check out a gorgeous little strip of beach, which is right there off to the right of our nose. That's called Alligator Point. And that will trace its way up to this big peninsula, which is where we'll find Bald Point State Park. And that is the location of the closest sandy beach to Tallahassee, which is about 30 miles directly to our north once we get out there. Man, it was so much better at sunrise, but that white stuff on the window, which you can't see right now, it's only when the sun hits it a certain way. Look, it's totally clear now. I just don't get that. Maybe there's a great reason for it to be there. Look how gorgeous this is. And I think that state park down there, Bald Point, was designated a state park fairly recently, in the 2000s. I don't remember that back in my college days. I graduated from Florida State in '99. And I never came down to this beach either. I went down to St. George a few times. I joined an astronomy club in Tallahassee while I was at school there. And we had a big star party out there one weekend. And I drove out there and the winds were just blowing all over the place, which is not great for expensive optics and telescopes. And I had a gigantic 12-inch Dobsonian reflector, which I kept covered most of the time, but I tried to pitch a tent there on the beach with the sand and the wind and everything. It was a nightmare. I think I wound up sleeping in my car. Let's hop outside the plane again. Listen to the sound of that thing. Amazing. And they got tons of liveries. All of them look really, really cool. How beautiful is that? And if you didn't see our Deep South flight, which is the one I mentioned earlier, again, another one of my hometown tours, you might not realize that Florida is not completely surrounded by white sandy beaches. Everything along the Gulf Coast, from here down to just north of Tampa, down around the Clearwater area, is marshy swamplands, which equates to probably 200, 250 miles of coastline, maybe even a little bit more than that. And then everything from Naples, which is south of Tampa, around the tip to Miami is also really marshy and swampy, including the Keys. Not a lot of sandy beaches down there. Well, the white stuff's back. I can't even imagine living down there. I would not want to, though, because the hurricanes are a real threat in this area. They always, every year they get a hurricane that comes through somewhere on the Panhandle. And coming over that warm Gulf, just slam into it. All right, this inlet here is called Ocklackney Bay, which is fed by the Ocklackney and Sopchoppy rivers. And as you're going to see, not a lot of population down here either. But I bet you could find a few liquor stores for all the college kids coming down to the beach. That's a pretty big beach there too, isn't it? And over to our right in this area right here is Oyster Bay, which probably has a few oyster beds. And man, you really have to watch out for those things out here. You can see them popping up all over the place when the tide goes out. So if you don't want to ruin the hull of your fiberglass boat, or any boat, watch out for those guys. One interesting thing about the Gulf, for those of you who've never taken a boat out or fished out here, you could cruise out of this place and head straight towards the center of the Gulf, and it would be about 100 miles before you would get to water that was more than 100 feet deep. It's really bizarre. There's a huge shelf that extends out from the west side of the Florida Peninsula. Back when I lived down in Citrus County, we would go out for miles and miles, and we get to some spots where you could just hop out of the boat and stand. Crazy, but great fishing. Look at this little town here. It's just amazing. I mean, these are some of the nicest beaches in the world, and all they have are these little pockets of these tiny little towns out here. Another great looking marina. And a great looking bridge, which probably looks a lot like that in real life too. All right, we're going to follow a road called Coastal Highway North towards Crawfordville from here. And we'll come across a little map dot called Panacea at the northern end of this water right here. Panacea is right about here probably. And during the Civil War, there was a huge salt plant out here that kept West Florida adequately seasoned until a hurricane wiped this place off the map in 1928. Or at least the salt plant rebuilt the town. These are just some amazing coastal areas, some of my favorites in the sim, and I feel kind of guilty since I live in Florida. I feel like I've favored it a little bit, and it's nice to fly over places that you've been to before, but it all just looks so good. Really good. And when the tide goes out, man, a lot of this stuff, I mean, you just see oyster beds everywhere popping up out here. They're a real threat, and the Indians really lived off those things too. Lots of midden piles out there with nothing but broken up oyster shells. All right, so in just a little bit, Crawfordville is going to be to our left, the bustling metropolis of Crawfordville. They've got a population of around 5,000 down there. And the earliest residents of that town got their start 8 miles to the east in a town they called Port Leon at the confluence of the Wakulla and St. Marks rivers, which is probably... So the rivers kind of come in here. It's probably around there. We're not going to see it from here because we're going to be too far inland. Well, in 1843, a hurricane also washed that place away, so they moved around a few times, eventually winding up out here in Crawfordville in 1892, naming the town after Senator John L. Crawford because they were probably sick and tired of all the Northerners mispronouncing the Indian names out here. In fact, Panacea was originally called Smith Springs until some Northerners moved down and bought up all the land. I think they were from Boston, and assuredly pissed off all the locals since they just couldn't leave well enough alone. But there are some springs down there. I guess they had 5 springs. So they were probably trying to make it a little bit of a tourist destination. Is that a golf course down there? If it is, it's awfully dry, isn't it? Well, that looks like a golf course. Maybe it's a neighborhood that they haven't built out yet. Very dry golf course. But being a northern transplant myself, the mistake I was making when I moved down here was giving the A's too soft of a sound in all these place names, these Indian words. But if there's an A at the end, that's always soft, but not any of the others. So I would have said Apalachicola or Chattahoochee instead of that ah sound, which is a very Florida thing. So it's Apalachicola, Chattahoochee, Tallahassee, Homosassa. But that last A is always soft if there's one there. That's a little bonus lesson for you guys thinking about visiting the area. All right, so there's Crawfordville. And this is the main drag that goes all the way up to Tallahassee, so I've cruised that road many a time. I think they have a big golf resort out here somewhere too. All right, up next, which is going to be right down over here, is Wakulla Springs. A place very near and dear to my formerly pickled liver. We used to take our pledges out here for retreats back in my fraternity days. And on one such visit, I had to sleep in the passenger seat of a Mustang with no air conditioning for 2 nights. You can imagine how much fun that was. 90-degree heat with 100% humidity. A real hoot. So they got a little complex down here. I think there's even some marinas, and this forms the Wakulla River, and this is like crystal clear. It's like a swimming pool, and they got springs like this all over Florida. Awesome place to snorkel, swim around in, scuba dive in, and some of them have some pretty good cave complexes too. Look at that. So on the Google map at the end, or the little NavMap satellite map, when we see it, that's really, really clear, and then washes down there through Wakulla, and the town of Port Leon was probably right about here, where these rivers came together. That's the one that got washed away by the hurricane. All right, so we're going to swing out to the east so we can follow that road up to the Capitol building, which is called Appalachicola Parkway. Very intentionally designed, the Capitol is, to sit up on that big hill at the end of that road. And I should note, so far, our Capitol building for the state of Florida still holds the top spot for the most phallic-looking of them all, any of them that I've seen. And if you want to confirm that, see if you can find a head-on picture of it from the air. I'm going to have to take a bad angle to get to where we need to be, so our view is going to give it no justice. But maybe when we come around from the other side to swing up to that southerly approach, we'll get a better look at it. But before the Europeans arrived and upset the apple cart, Tallahassee was a Creek Indian word that loosely meant Old Town, later adopted by the Seminole Indians, who emerged from an assortment of tribes, fleeing the north and blending with the local Native Americans. And Seminole, by the way, if you missed our swamp flight, is another Creek word that means runaway, which is what those guys were. I think they felt safe out here because no one in their right mind would ever come out to this area. But before it became a state in 1845, Florida was U.S. territory with 2 capitals. And this is why I mentioned those 2 spots before. One was in St. Augustine, and the other was all the way on the western end of the Panhandle in Pensacola. But back then, a trip between the 2 cities was fastest by water, which still took over a month. So it only took 2 legislative sessions for everyone to determine that was not only ridiculous, but incredibly dangerous. So for the 3rd one, they picked the halfway point, which happened to be an old Indian town called Tallahassee. And there it's at. Of interesting note, however, during the Civil War, Tally was the only southern capital not captured by the Union. And I don't blame them one bit for not wanting to bother that sweltering hellhole. I can't even imagine living out here before air conditioning. Insane. And you know what? I forgot to write it down, but I think the guy who was like pivotal in inventing air conditioning is from Apalachicola. I think he made a very early refrigeration system for making ice. And I don't recall what his name was, but they have a big statue of him, if that's the right town. I think it was Apalachicola. It might have been one of the others. Today, the population of Tallahassee is around 200,000, with nearly half of them being students at FSU, FAMU, or Tallahassee Community College. And my alma mater of FSU was founded in 1843 as an all-girls school. And the lingering disproportion of females to males was not overlooked in my decision to attend that school over UF, whose stats leaned in the other direction. All right, I'm going to pull our manifold pressure way back because I want to slow down some as we're coming over town, and I'm going to take the autopilot off so that I can get all the right angles, because this thing swings out pretty wide when it's on autopilot. All right, just maintain our altitude. So far, so good. I'm going to try to get down to about 250 knots. So maybe 35 inches of pressure there. And in 1887, the Normal College for Colored Students was founded, eventually becoming Florida Agriculture and Mechanical University, or FAMU for short, which is just a little south of the FSU campus. All right, so here's that road, 19, that went all the way back to my hometown. Drove this many, many times coming up here. And it's worth mentioning that one time in Dixie County, I'm not making 1 ounce of this story up, we were driving through there one time going 1 mile over the speed limit of 55 miles an hour. Got pulled over in Dixie County by a little country bumpkin cop named Mark Bible, who said, "You guys are going a little bit fast through here, aren't you?" It was me and 4 of my buddies. Pulled us all out of the car, handcuffed us behind the car, searched the whole thing, pulled it apart, the seats out and everything, didn't find anything, and then gave us a ticket for going 1 mile over the speed limit. Luckily, I wasn't driving. My parents would have killed me. All right, so dead ahead of us, right off the tip of our nose, there is the Governor's Square Mall, which was one of the 2 big malls out here in Tallahassee. My wife and I both worked there for a while. I was in the shoe retail business for a while, before I had another job that I'll not even mention. It's too embarrassing to even talk about, but I'll show you where it was. And I think that's a community college campus down there. That's not Tallahassee Community College, but I think, if memory serves me... Guys, I have not been out here. I graduated, let's see, around 25 years ago. I've been out here twice since I graduated. The memories are just too painful of what an idiot I was when I was living out here. It's a miracle I made it out of college. So it was a little bit gut-wrenching to take this flight because, frankly, I just don't like seeing it again. All right, here's the Capitol. Let's see if we can see how penis-looking this thing is. There it is right there. Okay, so there's an old Capitol building right in front of it, the original Capitol building. And then this is the main Capitol. Well, we get a much better look at it. The main Capitol building now is this really tall building here. I think it's the tallest one in town. And on each side of it, they've got two domes that are the House and the Senate chambers. Which, again, looks very much like something inappropriate. But it's really hilarious. I haven't seen any other Capitol buildings that look like that. There it is right there. We're going to come around this way here, so we'll take a better look at it. So there's the old building right there, which I think is a museum, the original one. And then there's the current Capitol building. That's a Supreme Court building right behind it there. And then here's the Florida State University campus. Okay, so let's see what kind of airspeed we got. We're at 250 knots, which is good. And I'll take the autopilot off. So this is Tennessee Street running down through here, which is where all the bars and everything are. This is the FSU campus over here. And there's Doak Campbell Stadium. And when I came here in 95, they were just completing all this stuff built up around the outside of it. My first dorm was this place right here, called Osceola Hall. The only dorm that had a kitchen built into the dorm, a cafeteria built into the dorm. And they didn't have communal showers either, which I thought was just great. But I was paying my own way through college, so I was not getting an easy ride for sure. So I'd ride my bike over here. My bike got stolen twice. So I eventually just got a beater with a rusty old chain that kept falling off all the time as I'd ride down through campus. And all my classes were on the other side of campus over here. And then after my second year, let's see, I moved from there into an apartment complex, which was this place right here. And then I moved into a fraternity house all the way on the other side of campus, which was just a nightmare of an experience. I can't believe I thought I was having a good time when I lived there. They should have condemned that place 50 years before I moved into it. But it was what it was. Made for some good stories. All right, here's the FAMU campus down here, which has a big pharmaceutical school. And there's their stadium right there. I never really came south of the stadium for anything all the time I was living here, except to go down to the beaches. There's the big convention center where they have the powwow, which is the annual big homecoming event they had out here. And this place has been built up so much since I was out here. I came down about, I don't know, 8 years ago with one of my daughters who had a soccer tournament out here, and I couldn't even find my way around. It was so built up. What's up outside the plane again? That is incredible. And they got a big engineering program at Florida State. A law school, which is not as big of a deal as the one at UF is. All right, here's the Capitol building again. So you really can't tell from here, but when you're driving up this main road, I mean, it's like a straight uphill, which is very rare in Florida because there's so few hills. And then it dead ends right there at the Capitol, which is wicked cool. For those of you from Rhode Island, speak Rhode Islandese. Look at that thing. So this is Park Street right down here, and the place I was working after the shoe place was a place called Club Park Avenue, which... well, I'll tell you, I've told you everything else. So during the daytime, I would go and I worked security at night, but I would back the bar during the day, so I'd have to go and stock up the bar for each night. And during that time, it was a gay bar for all the lot of senators and people that worked for the government that were gay dudes. And I didn't like working during the gay time because I got hit on a lot, which is why I never made a point to ever hit on women because I know what it feels like. And it would grotesquely hit on. But on Saturday nights is how I paid my way through college. I would serve shots in my underwear to those guys because that was the only night of the week that it was gay night. And on the straight nights, I would work the door, letting all my underage buddies in there. But it paid the bills. You do what you got to do. All right, so there's actually some Indian mounds out here. I want to see if I can see them actually while we're out here. I don't know if we can see them from the air, but they're pretty big. There's a little park down here. Let's come over this way, and I'm going to bank hard to the left, see if we can spot it. All right, that park right down there where my pointer is, that's where they would be, but you can't see them, unfortunately. Maybe it's over here. We'll come out here a little bit because we got to get around for this airport anyway. So off to our right, as we're coming in on final, you'll see the campus of Tallahassee Community College, which is where Dale Mabry Airport was, which is what they were using before they built Tallahassee International, which used to be Tallahassee Regional when I was out here, but they built a customs station in there in 2015, so I guess that's when they changed it to International. All right, let's start slowing down, and let's go ahead and bring our booster back. Bring it way back. Let's see if we can get down to about 200 knots, which we're there. And our airport's over there. Alright, let's see if I can land this thing. Have any better luck than last time. Alright, gears out. Landing lights back on. And once we get down to about 150 knots, I'll slide the canopy back open like you're supposed to do. So you can listen to this baby roar as we're coming in. Alright. What kind of wind we got? Oh man, now it's kind of a crosswind again. I should have gone the other runway. That's alright. It's only a 5 knot from here. So maybe it won't be so bad close to the ground. Alright, watching that airspeed. We'll give it 2 notches of flaps. 1/3 of our flaps that we've got available. Alright, so the community college campus is probably right here. And that's where the old airport was. And we always used to call TCC, that's what we called it, Tallahassee Community College, kind of the Bush League for FSU. Because all the kids that couldn't make the cut for the initial applications to get in would start there, knowing full well that half the kids would wind up failing out, which they did, by their sophomore year. So whoever survived at TCC in this party atmosphere would wind up enrolling at FSU. But it's not a small school. They got 25,000 enrollees there at a community college, and the campus is huge, almost as big as Florida State's. All right, so I'm going to stay a little bit high. Let's trim up some, because I'm going to dive down here at the end. We'll get those flaps all the way out. Keep trimming up. All right, we're holding this heading pretty well despite the wind. Man, now it's going from 7 to 13, so this could be a problem. We'll see. All right, slow down some more. We'll go full flaps. Once we hit 150, we'll slide the canopy back and rock and roll. There's the community college. Look how big that place is. All right, we're there. Awesome. All right, so now we'll just dive down. I'm going to go ahead and cut the throttle because, again, our ref speed is 100 miles per hour. I don't think we'll have any problems staying above that as we cut down at this angle. And again, this airport looks nothing like it does here in the sim in real life. All default stuff. How cool is this? This is incredible. So awesome. Let's see if I can stick this landing. Come on, wind, die down. Well, now we got a tailwind. What is going on? Got a little bit of rough air up here. Full flaps. I'm going to go ahead and give this plane something I've never done before, a must-buy rating. You guys have, even if you don't like these types of planes, man, you got to get it, feel it, fly it. It's amazing. Really like it. And I probably have 6 or 7 warbirds like this, and they're all okay. Some of them look really cool. Some are very highly rated, but this one is really taking the cake for me. All right, so we're just going to flare for a while. This runway is about 7,000 feet, about 1,000 feet shorter than the other one. And we're also going to lose sight of the runway once we get our nose up here. All right, start bleeding off that speed. Bleed it. We're under 100 knots. Can I do it without hopping? Oh, yeah. Stuck it. Sweet. Whoa, 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 whoa. All right. Just stay on the runway. Just stay on the runway. Don't blow it now. Full back pressure on the stick. Yes. Well, you guys saw it. That's got to be my best landing so far. Awesome. All right, so where's the main airport building? And we're just going to come over this way, pull up in front of a hangar, then we'll check out a little NavMap. So as always, the flight plan will be included in the video description, a link to our Discord server. And as I always mention, well, don't always, but I need to mention a lot more. If you have cool places that we need to check out, hop onto our Discord server or just leave me a comment on the YouTube page. Let me know where it is. Give me a departure, an arrival code. Tell me some things I need to spot in the middle. And if you're part of our Discord server, which I highly encourage you to join, if you're an old fogey like me, don't be afraid of Discord like I was. Very easy to use. You can take part in our quarterly flight plan competition, voted on by the sim community, and the winner will get a gift card to the sim vendor of your choice. This will be our second competition. We've already got probably, what I think I'm going to do, we've got like 4 entries already. 3 of the flights we've already taken. So I think I'll try to whittle it down to just 3 because nobody wants to watch 10 videos again if they want to try to cast a vote. Let's go to that little shack over there. But then I'll post my 3 favorite, and those are the ones that we'll vote on. But put your entries in there. The next flight is probably going to be I've already mapped out and put the bookmarks in that flight from Montenegro, which is incredible. And then Turin, if I don't get distracted again like I did for this one. All right, back pressure. Let's stop. We'll shut her down. What an incredible flight. Never mind the stuff on the ground. This plane is just amazing. Okay, so throttles back. We'll cut the mixture, cut the prop, and cut the mags, and that should do it. Man, what a plane. What a plane. I didn't bring my flaps up again. For an amateur. Okay, so let's see. Let's get back to where we started from. Take our centering off. Just a few spots to look at real quick. Look at these rivers out here. I mean, they're all like this. Just super windy. Man, I bet if you had like a John boat going up in there and fishing for some bass and stuff, must be incredible. So there's Apalachicola, not Apalachicola. Apalachicola. And their huge airport. And Tyndall Air Force Base, which is the one that became the auxiliary field for, is right over here. So that's about 30 miles from here to there. And a lot of these towns along the coast here, Destin is photogrammetry. What else is Pensacola obviously is. Mobile's photogrammetry. Panama City Beach is photogrammetry. So you could just take a cruise along the coast there and see lots of really nice looking stuff. And some forts in some of those areas. None on this one. All right, so we left the airport, came around, checked out Apalachicola. Saw our airport for St. George Island here. And the bridge that connected it, built in 1961. Before that, it was a bombing range. Very cool. Look at all these houses out here. So when I came out here for the Star Party with the Astronomy Club, we set up shop right down here. So this is the island's park down here. The one that got rated number 3 in the country in 2013. That's where I was, getting blown all over the place. And here's their school. Well, they do have some fields down there. That's it, in the whole county. The only brick and mortar school, other than the charter school, and I don't know where that is. So here's Carabelle up here, where they used to have all that turpentine and lumber factories. That was a beautiful town, too. All those, just the boats and the bridges, everything looked incredible. Too bad this stuff didn't get modeled, maybe in 2024. And here's Dog Island, where they would drop off all the drunkards that were going to get wasted and run off when they... I mean, who would run off from here, though? Geez, what are you going to do, run into the swamp? You might, if the ship ride was bad enough. And then all the ballast they'd throw off the ships is piled up down here. I wonder how close to the surface some of that is, because this has got to be pretty shallow. But that's where they throw all the rocks. And there's Lanark Village, which presumably is where they built that resort for all the well-to-do folks in Tallahassee coming out here. There's Alligator Point, also looked incredible. There's Bald Point out there. And that's it. See what I'm talking about with the sandy beaches? This is it. So if you go all along the Gulf Coast, look at this. Nothing but marshes and swamps all the way down to Tampa, just like that. There's Cedar Key. That's where we landed on that flight. Here's my hometown. So this is that road that runs all the way up to Tallahassee, 19. Running all the way through there. And somewhere around here is Dixie County. I wonder if Mark Bible's still protecting and serving out there. And there's the Ockalochnee River. And we came up here by Panacea, which was once called something Springs till the Bostonians moved in. And there's Crawfordville. And then here's Wakulla Springs. Let's see if it looks like a spring in here. No, the Google map was a little bit better. You could actually see down into it, which was cool. But that's where I spent 2 nights in a Mustang with no AC. What a nightmare that was. I can't believe I survived college. It's incredible. So then we came up here, and there's the Governor Square Mall, right? Well, where is it? There it is right there. So my wife was working at a place over here, a little restaurant they had over here, while I was slinging shots to dudes on Saturday nights. And then here's the Capitol building, and you really just can't see the 2 big bulges on there, but what a sight that is. Jeez. And then here's the Supreme Court right here. So this is the original Capitol now that is just a museum. And they got a little observatory up here that you can take. I think it's like 25, 30 stories to get up to the top. And you can see all the way to the Gulf from there. It's really, really cool on a clear day. And then we came around it, and here's Florida State's campus down here. There's old Doak Campbell down there. And my apartment complex was over here. My dorm was right there, Osceola Hall, which is now apartments. So I guess they converted it to apartments. I wouldn't know. I haven't been out here. There's the big Florida State campus. And for a while, when I wasn't doing the thing with shots in my underwear, I was driving something called the Drunk Bus, which was just as entertaining because all I did was FSU had a service where you'd pick up drunk kids for free and take them home, which was a very valuable service, but not a lot of fun. Can you imagine driving drunks around all night, not getting paid for it? Not much anyway. So there's FSU. There is FAMU down there. And they have a big, like, magnetic engineering facility down here somewhere. I can't recall exactly where that was, but that's somewhere south, too. Came up around this way. And then here is where the Indian Mounds are, right there. Yeah, we wouldn't have been able to see those in the sim, but I think that was the park. They're even buried in the trees there, but it's really cool. You can climb up a big ramp that goes up to the top of them. Really, really neat. And then we came in for our final. So that's it, guys. I cannot endorse that plane enough. If you like warbirds at all, get that one. It is amazing. Really, really love that plane. So stay tuned. Up next, probably going to be Torin. I really need to... I think I'm going to take the F-16 on that flight in Montenegro because it's a long flight, and we need to do it pretty quick. but the terrain out there is incredible. So I can't wait to show that to you guys. Until then, have fun, stay in the sim. Can't wait to see you all again in the skies. Later.